What is biodiversity? Biological and diversity, the variability among living organisms from all sources, including terrestrial, marine, and other aquatic ecosystems, and the ecological complexes of which they are part. This includes diversity within species, between species, and of ecosystems. The variability from genes to ecosystems and beyond. 1. Genetic diversity, very specific genes that make organisms look different. 2. Species diversity. 3. Ecosystem diversity, high level. A sand dunes, seagrass, coral reef. B. Distinct ecosystems, identifying boundaries in between or difficult species on Earth. How many? We don't really know. 2 million species have been described. We don't know how many have been undescribed. Taxonomic distribution of SPP diversity. 55% insects are most diverse, then vascular plants, then non-vascular, then other arthropods, etc. mollusks. Method to determine how many more species. 1. Size diversity relationship. Rule: the bigger the organisms, the lesser amount. Why there are more bugs. Rule: the smaller the organism, the more in population. Species with backbones are easy to determine. X. Easier to identify elephants and bugs. Rule: how long did it take to describe all of the species, which rate? 2. Extrapolate from well-known fauna, extend the application of a method or conclusion, especially one based on statistics, to an unknown situation by assuming that existing trends will continue or similar methods will be applicable. X. 22,000 insect species, fine filter from a well-documented fauna. X. 15,000 to 22,000 butterfly species to 5 to 6.6 million species of insects in the world, extrapolated. 3. Extrapolation from tropical beetles. Collected 800 species of beetles. Figured 20% were tree-specific. Approximation that 400 species of insects were in canopy. Canopy trunk. 50,000 species of tree, 30 million insects in tropical forest. 4. Reasonable. We know the taxonomic levels. Uncertainty increases as you go down. Related those numbers in relation to highest taxonomic level. Global pattern in species diversity. Latitudinal gradient. Diversity decreases from equator to poles. Latitudinal gradient in land vertebrate diversity. Land gradient in marine diversity. Altitudinal gradient. Diversity decreases the higher you go up a mountain. Area gradient. Diversity decreases as island size decrease. Why are tropics so species rich? Evolutionary history. Environmental stability. Tropical communities are older. Faster speciation rate. Glaciation events, repeated events, species that could not survive or move away died out. Reset the diversity scale. Faster speciation rates in tropics. Climate. High solar energy input. Water availability. Species richness and productivity. Solar radiation increases evaporation. Water availability affects transpiration. Combo of the two: evapotranspiration, balance between uptake and loss of water. Affects number of species in an area. When numbers are low, less species. When numbers are high, lots of species. Habitat size and species diversity. Larger areas have a greater diversity of habitats. Hypothesis versus theory. Hypothesis is unsure, not a lot of evidence. Theory has a massive body of evidence. Island biogeography theory predicts number of species in an area, for example, oceanic island, habitat island. Rates of immigration and local extinction predict species richness at equilibrium. Rate of immigration goes down with number of species in an island. More ethnological niches are taken up. Harder for species to establish themselves. Rate of extinction is from more competition. Effective proximity to mainland. Mainland attracts more immigrants than an island far. Hard to island hop. An island further will get less species. Near island has less excitation because species are replaced. Distance from mainland matters. Island size matters. More habitable, more resources. Large islands are large targets. What is conservation biology? A discipline concerned with effects of environmental change on biological diversity. Uses evidence-based approaches to anticipate, prevent, minimize, and repair ecological damage. About 2 million species formally described to be extinct. True number, 10 to 50 million species. Rate of extinction, 2 to 5 marine families every million years. -1 species per year for every 1 million, -10 million. Species present since Cambrian. Ultimate cause of loss of biodiversity. Humans. Increase population size. Increase use of finite resources. Consequences of human population. Increase consumption. Habitat destruction. Degradation to fragmentation to loss. Agriculture, forestry, mining, trawling, urban sprawl, overexploitation, removing plants and animals at rate exceeding the population's capacity to recover. Unsustainable fishing, hunting, logging, subsistence global markets, change in technology, cheaper, more deadly, short-sighted psychology, individuals, governments, economics, rarer resources are more valuable. Introduce species, deliberate or accidental release of species in locations where they have never previously lived. Non-natives, exotics, non-indigenous, aliens, invasives. Prey on, outcompete, or parasitize native species. Pollution, light, noise, contaminants. Urban development, transport, power generation, industry. Far-reaching, long-lived effects, climate change. Example, phenological change in spring leaf growth. Plan to protect areas. Large reserves better than small. Proximity to other reserves is good, similar to islands near mainland. Corridors that connect habitat fragments can aid conservation. Movement corridor, why it matters. One supporting service is needed for all other services. Species and habitats have a monetary value equal to cost of providing a human-made alternative. Oxygen, nutrient cycling, soil formation worm, X earthworms, churn and mix the soil. Bring 10 to 500 THA, ear of soil to surface. A service to agriculture worth $5 billion per wire in us alone. Estimate of global economic benefits of biodiversity. Photosynthesis. 2 provisioning services beneficial to people. Clean water, food, fisheries, wood and fiber. 3 regulating services maintain processes, flood control, erosion defense, water purification, carbon storage, clean air, pollination. Cultural services, non-material benefits from nature. Aesthetic, recreation, religious or philosophical, mental well-being. The Canadian Species at Risk Act process. COSWIC is independent, does not represent governments, interest groups, industry, or anybody else. Evaluations only based on evidence, science, plus Aboriginal traditional knowledge. Ignore social, economic, political considerations. No involvement in SARA listing consultations or recovery. Knowledge Subcommittee plus 10 taxonomic. Amphibians and reptiles, marine mammals. Arthropods, mollusks. Birds, mosses, and lichens. Freshwater fishes, terrestrial mammals. Marine fishes, vascular plants. Assessment criteria, IUCN. A. Population decline. B. Small distribution and decline or fluctuation. C. Small population size and decline. D. Very small or restricted population. E. Quantitative analysis, model. Mollusks are in trouble. Species in BC. BC is most diverse province in Canada. Species are quite rich, especially with fungi. 16. Biogeoclimatic zones. Examples of threatened habitats in BC. Bunchgrass S. interior. Ponderosa pine S. interior. Interior Douglas fir S. interior. Coastal Douglas fir S. Vancouver I and Gulf Islands. Vancouver Island marmot is most endangered in Canada. Ecosystem subsidies. Ecosystem, marine ecosystem. O, terrestrial ecosystem. Materials cross ecosystem boundaries. Seaweed from ocean to land. It can fertilize foreshore area, and animals will transport nutrients onto land. Marine to terrestrial ecosystem. X, seabird guano from ocean to land. Bird poop spread nutrients and fertilizer, leaves into streams, break down and decompose to become available to other species. Salmon into streams and into land. Born into freshwater, come back to sea, bring nutrients back and forth. Important consequences for adjacent terrestrial ecosystems. Great Bear Rainforest. Main focus, stream. Bears in rainforest do not eat entire carcass. Carcass is left on edge of stream. Nutrients fertilize the surrounding area. Nutrient subsidies from salmon. Is there a fertilizer? 1. Impact on plants. A. Put carcass near edge of stream and away from edge control group. B. Collect leaves near and away from carcass. C. Go back in spring. Collect plants near and far. D. Compare nitrogen with plants without carcass and with carcass. Results, increase in amount of oxygen with plants. F. Plants don't grow in far, but nutrients are still there for them in spring. G. The lower salmon density, the high the lower level. H. Plants can grow anywhere, but do better where there are salmon. 2. Impact on birds. A more carcass on stream, more scavengers. B. More carcass biomass, the more breeding birds. C. X. Pacific wren. Bird territories share streams. D. More streams with more salmon have more territories, and smaller as they pack in to eat insects that benefit for the salmon. 3. Effects on flowers and insects. A. Experiment, 4 plots treatments, replicated 25 times in the salt marsh. I. Control. T. Salmon carcass. T. Rockweed. I've salmon plus rockweed. B. In plots with carcasses, there were more pollinators and visitors on plants with salmon nutrients. Implications for ecosystem-based management. Consider if we need to manage not only for people but for wider environment. Challenge, Canada's Wild Salmon Policy 2005. Research, how many salmon do you need for a healthy ecosystem? Ecosystem subsidies can translate to conservation if people decide on targets and trade-offs. Freshwater to terrestrial to marine. How much do people value the different species that benefit environment? And phenotypic expression of genotype. 1. Heterozygote advantage. General rules to solve pedigree problems. 1. Autosomal recessive. And the condition is recessive, that is affected individuals have 2 recessive alleles. Homozygous recessive individuals are affected. Normal parents can have affected offspring. The condition can appear suddenly or skip generations. 2. Autosomal dominant. If a condition is dominant, i.e. affected individuals have 1 or 2 dominant alleles, homozygous recessive individuals are not affected. An affected offspring have at least 1 affected parent. The condition cannot skip a generation and come. Autosomal versus sex-linked. In humans, 1 pair of sex chromosomes equal to female, and XY equal to male. If a gene is larger and has more genes. If a gene is X-linked, a female has 2 alleles. A male has 1 allele on X. Then female can only pass on 1 or 2 traits if there are 2 combos. Men can pass 4 types of combos. Polygenic inheritance. Multiple genes determine trait. Characters have near normal frequency distribution. Eye color in vertebrates is polygenic, and up to 15 different genes involved, and partly due to pigment quantities, melanin and others, and partly due to light scattering structural colors. Changes in babies as melanin pigmentation proceeds 1 to 3 years. Frequencies of alleles vary greatly in populations. Microevolution. Evolution is a change in allele frequency over time. Allele frequencies can change due to natural selection and genetic drift. Mention gene flow. Mutation. Microevolution occurs within species in allele frequencies. End set. Macroevolution is the evolution of new species. Allele frequency. Consider a population where gene A has two alleles, a 1 and a 2. And the gene pool. Frec A1 equal to 10/20 equal to 0.5. Frec A2 equal to 10/20 equal to 0.5. And Frec A1 plus A2 equal to 1. Changing 10 years later, there has been a change in allele frequency. The population has evolved. In the gene pool, A2 equal to 16/20 equal to 0.8. Frec A1 plus A2 equal to 1. Min Frec A1 equal to 4/20 equal to 0.2. How do new alleles originate? Mutation. Random heritable changes in DNA that introduce new alleles into a gene pool. Rates are generally low. Humans 1.1 times 10 to 8 per. Mutations can be, and deleterious, neutral, beneficial, and only mutations that occur in germline are inherited. And mutations plus natural selection among genomes generates diversity in COVID genomes. Point mutation. Change in a single base pair, which changes a single amino acid in gene duplication. If a gene is duplicated, the second copy can accumulate mutations freely. Genome duplication. Extra copies of all chromosomes above the diploid level and triploid. Triploid, tetraploid, been are common in plants. In plants, duplication, polyploidy, and be induced artificially. Agricultural plants often triploid minus seedless. More. In trout and salmon minus triploidy induces sterility when N, horizontal gene transfer. Genes passed from one organism to another. Common among bacteria. Likely origin of eukaryotic chloroplasts and mitochondria. What affects allele frequency? And adaptive evolution results in a better fit between individuals and their environment. And non-adaptive evolution is random and may have a positive, neutral, or negative effect on fitness and genetic drift, and change in allele frequencies due to chance events, not due to fitness differences. Affects strongest in a small population that stays small. And can fix alleles. An allele isn't fixed when it has a frequency of 1. And special case, founder effect. In small number of individuals, start a new population. Migrants are random sample of available alleles. A new population may be over or underrepresented for some traits relative to the source population. When a populace bottleneck effect. When a population becomes small very quickly, allele frequencies may change due to chance events. This can happen within populations, not due to migration. X. Northern elephant seals pop reduced, had only one allele in each gene, high homozygosity. And gene flow, when transfer of alleles from one population to another. Immigration and emigration. Accidental movement, important in mobile organisms. Can reduce potential for genetic divergence. 1. Directional selection. Can increase or decrease mean phenotype. One extreme phenotype is favored over the other extremes and the mean phenotype, causing the population's average trait to shift towards that favored extreme over time. Disruptive selection. Individuals with extreme traits at either end of the spectrum have higher fitness than those with intermediate traits, leading to increased genetic and phenotypic diversity within a population. Bill size of Galapagos finches, based on diet. Stabilizing selection. Individuals with moderate or average phenotypes are more fit, more likely to survive and reproduce. An extreme variance removed. Putting evolution into the classification, organizing the diversity of life, taxonomy and classification. Taxonomy, the science of classification, naming and organizing species into related groups based on similarity of features. Linnaean classification, binomial species names, separating genus species. X, dog rows, hierarchical classification. Genus, plural, genera. Taxon, PL, taxa. What taxonomy reveals about evolution. Just list phylogenetic order. Phylogenetics, study of the evolutionary history of related groups of organisms. Organisms are grouped into based on shared characteristics that result from common ancestry. Phylogenetic trees. A phylogenetic tree represents a hypothesis about the evolutionary relationships among species or higher taxa, built based on similarities of anatomy, development, proteins, DNA due to homology. Evidence used to contrast phylogenetic trees. 1. Fossil record. 2. Similarities of anatomy, development, proteins, DNA, when due to homology descended from common ancestors. Genetics are very vague. Same ancestor, modified by selection for different purposes. How to read a tree. 2 types to draw. Taxonomy, unit of biodiversity. Node, where the split to create 2 different taxons occur. Clade, every species within the same node. Time runs bottom to top from root, also known as common ancestor, to up the nodes. Sister taxa, human and Pan share more similarities than either does to gorilla. Lady Gaga and Pan shared a common ancestor more recently than they did with orangutans. Character evolution, morphological traits or behaviors evolve. Map the traits onto the tree. X, upright posture, reduced hairlessness, use of tools, complex language, bipedal. ancestral character, shared by a group of related organisms and their derived character, traits that are shared by a group of related organisms but not found in their ancestors. Branch lengths, no scale, relative diagram, or branch lengths can show genetic distance and relatedness, or branch lengths show the extent of evolutionary time between nodes, scale bar included, X. Molecular clock, danger of superficial resemblances, evolution on two different trees but look similar. Traits are analogous, evolved from convergent evolution, not shared ancestry. Use traits for different purposes. Convergent evolution, traits did not come from common ancestor, but traits evolved for similar function. Bird and bat wings are homologous. Their forelimbs are inherited from a common ancestor, homologous, but not their wings. Classification should be based on clades, monophyletic groups. Monophyletic groups, a common ancestor and all of its descendants. Paraphyletic groups, a common ancestor and some, but not all of its descendants. Polyphyletic group, all or some of the descendants of two or more ancestors. Misconceptions about trees. Phylogenetic trees do not represent evolutionary progress. Ancestral traits arose early in the evolutionary history of a taxon. Traits have been modified from the ancestral form. Phylogenetic trees do not necessarily show increased diversity over time. Traditional classification does not always reflect phylogenetic relationships. Trees require to be built using multiple lines of independent evidence, X, DNA, fossils, morphology, biochemistry, supported by both structural and genetic evidence. Plus red, brown, and green algae. Multicellular, eukaryotic, autotrophic, plants plus brown and green algae. Cellulose in cell walls. Plants plus green algae. Chloroplasts with chlorophyll A and B. 3 groups of algae, defined by pigments, polyphyletic clades, green algae, brown algae, many seaweeds, red algae, not algae, blue, green algae, really cyanobacteria. Algae blooms indicate pollution excess nutrients. Green algae, chlorophytes chloro equal to green, phyte equal to plant. Charophytes, chara equal to joy of water, phyte plant. Native to BC, mostly freshwater, indicated high quality of water. Common traits between charophytes and land plants. Nearest relatives, close relationship between the two. Cell wall composition, cytokinesis, biochemistry, sperm ultrastructure, land plant origins, diverged from charophyte long time ago. DNA comparisons identify charophytes as closest relatives of land plants. Algae are ancestors of charophytes and land plants. Green algae restricted to aquatic or other wet environments. Land plants adapt to life on land. Many specialized new traits needed to survive and reproduce out of water. Characteristics of land plants represent devolution or origin of plants from ancestral algae ancestral traits. Adaptation of plants to a terrestrial environment derived traits. What are the problems faced by land plants? Desiccation, support, reproduction and development, environmental fluctuations, derived traits of plants. Alternation of generations and multicellular embryo develops within the mother plant. Land plants are embryophytes. Alternation of generation, generally diploid in dominant phase, haploid in tiny. Gametophyte, multicellular adult with haploid cells that produce gametes by mitosis. Sporophyte, multicellular adult with diploid cells that produce spores by meiosis. Undergoes mitosis to produce spores. Grow into haploid adult green clump on top. Derived traits of plants. Alternation of generations and multicellular embryo develops within the mother plant. Walled spores with sporopollenin produced in multicellular sporangia capsule. It'll burst and spores are born. Spores so tiny you can breathe it for distribution, growth of shoots and roots, grow with special meristems, small division possible. Other adaptations to life on land. Waterproof cuticle to prevent water loss. Stomata, allow exchange of CO2 and O2, prevent moisture loss. Control how many stomata it makes depending on dampness of environment. Tissues, miniature pipes that go up and down tissue. Xylem, H2O, and minerals up from roots. O-phloem, distribute sugars, etc. Elevator that transports nutrients. Structural support, secondary compounds, protect against herbivores, UV, pathogens, adapt nutrient requirements based on changes in environment. Plant will hear other attacked plant that release stress signals. Plant will make more secondary compounds. Group protection effect, major groups of plants, bryophytes, liverworts, hornworts, and mosses. Non-vascular plants, no xylem and phloem. Key adaptations. 4 derived traits of plants, use embryo within mother. Waxy cuticle to reduce water loss. Stomata to allow exchange of CO2 and O2, not present in liverwort's constraint. Height. No vascular system, no true roots, no true leaves. Water and nutrients transported by diffusion or osmosis. Constraint, moist environments. Flagellated sperm must swim to egg through a film of water, cannot reproduce without water. It will not go far outside of damp places. Seedless vascular plants, ferns, club, osiers, horsetails, mostly ferns. Key adaptation, vascular tissue. Efficient transport of water, nutrients, and sugars. Structural support, reduces height constraint. Consequence, increased size, increased photosynthetic activity caused a decrease in atmospheric CO2. Constraint, periodically moist environments. Flagellated sperm must swim to egg through a film of water. X. Corrupt spleenwort, endemic to BC, gymnosperms. Conifers, ginkgos, cycads, and netophytes. Key adaptation seed, new sporophyte embryo, protected in a seed, allows for interruption of life cycle. X. Ginkgo biloba. Asian, thought to be extinct, living fossil, grow in remote mountains. Key adaptation, pollen. Male gametophyte protected by spore coat. Sperm travels in pollen, travel by wind, no need for water. Types of species, morphological species, and discrete groups of organisms, defined by unique, reliable morphological characters. Many species are diverse in morphology. X. Salamanders look alike, don't breed. Phylogenetic species. Men, smallest diagnosable group of species that evolved from single ancestor, monophyletic, and acquired new features. X. Asian plus African elephant, phylogeny starting place, look at traits and habitats and environment behavior. Inch pop, accumulates mutation and change geographically. Biological species, interbreeding natural populations. O. Isolated reproductively from other groups. Limitations of biological species concept, can't apply to fossils. An asexual species, not possible. With no mating observations, consider morphological similarity or genetics. What is a subspecies? Different from one another, not different to be different species. Min subjective. Reserved term for geographically separate variants. X. Seaside sparrows, have a restricted range, look and sound different from each other. Between regions, slight DNA difference, 1% different call type. 1-2 phylogenetic species versus 6 morphospecies. How does speciation occur? Allopatric speciation, allo equal to apart. Physical separation reduces or eliminates gene flow, and split into 2 geographical groups by dispersal or vicariance, and sympatric speciation, symequal 2 together. When gene flow is possible, and a species diverges 2 groups within the same geographical area where they meet and mate. Allopatry, dispersal, in dispersal isolates populations, and continuous to divergence to 2 separate populations. X. Hawaii fruit flies, complex dispersal and speciation patterns among islands, and evolve different traits due to being blown around. Allopatry, vicariance. When split by geographical events, the ground shifts their feet. Start W continuous, begin to diverge due to drift and selection, finish W2 populations isolated from each other. Sympatry. Divergence occurs even through interbreeding is possible. How can divergence occur in sympatry? Ton use of difference. Food or habitat can select for morphological differences or lead to genetic drift if food or habitat use is associated with lack of gene flow. Genetic isolation and speciation can result. Exobugs use their beaks to reach seeds inside native fruit. Non-native fruits are much smaller than native fruits, evidence for disruptive selection on beak length. And non-native fruits is too small, beaks might shrink over time in order to feed. Men disruptive selection, men sympatric speciation, and divergence can cause sympatry. Use of different food or habitat can select for morphological differences or lead to genetic drift. If food or habitat use is associated with lack of gene flow, then genetic isolation and speciation can result. And gene flow is enemy, and allopatric plus sympatric speciation. Adapt to new environment and reinforce differences, as the level of reproductive isolation goes from 0% to 100%. BC lake sticklebacks has 2 species from 2 invasions. In different lakes evolved the pair, limnetics evolved into benthics. Formed limnetic and benthic, they behave differently, choose to mate with same morphotypes, they are separate. Limnetic, open water, is more defensive small, benthic bottom is girthy and less defensive. Predation further reinforces differences. Reproductive isolation. Rhinty prezygotic barriers prevent the sperm from fertilizing the egg. X. West and east skunk make at different times of year, like in different habitats, and do not meet. Similar species do not interbreed because different habitat, different mating calls, and different clock mating maturity, and accidents mating outside of species can be made. And X. Lighting makes fish color look different. They can't tell each other apart. Isolation, color, and shape prevent mating or exclude. Mimetic isolation. Only sperm from the same species able to fertilize egg important in species with external fertilization. For example, sea urchins. Unt post-zygotic barriers fertilization successful. Hybrid fitness reduced, and reduced viability. Hence, X. Hybrid embryos of Rhinopipians, leopard frog, and R. sylvatica wood frog don't develop. When reduced hybrid fertility. Unable to produce eggs or sperm due to problems. What happens when divergent populations come into contact? And reinforcement of differences. And reproductive isolation strengthened. So few hybrids went form. X. Sticklebacks. X flocks. Flower colors diverge in sympatry from their allopatric condition. Color affects pollinator choice. Infusion into 1 species. The species hybridize and 2 species become 1. Evidence, intersexual selection breakdown in cichlids, and hybrid fusion. Stable hybrid zone. Some hybrid zones are stable, and species not changing, hanging on to viable area of contact. Allopolyploid speciation, and very rapid. Implicated in the evolution of greater than half of all approximately 300,000 angiosperm species, and most ferns. And you have 2 pairs of chromosomes in most cases, then hybridized and polyploided multiple times, 4 pairs instead of 2. Then they can look very similar. An allopolyploid is a species with multiple sets of and chromosomes derived from different species. XX. Bread wheat, Triticum aestivum, is an allohexaploid 6N made up of chromosomes from 3 different parent species of Eurasian wild wheat and goatgrass species. Breeders tinker with wheat and create hybrids W-enhanced characteristics. Speciation can be a gradual process or a sudden event allopatric or sympatric, or a combination with reinforcement. What are animals? They are multicellular, they are heterotrophic, they are eukaryotic. They have structural proteins, for example collagen, nerve and muscle cells. They have unique sequence of development regulated by Hox genes. The Cambrian explosion. Modern animal phyla appear in the fossil record suddenly, 574 Maya, dramatically simultaneously. All major body plans, hard body parts, all 35 living phyla, plus a few more. Molecular clock estimates how to find how old an animal is, based on rates at which mutations accumulate. Can estimate when 2 or more taxa last shared common ancestor. Best estimate, animals originated in the Neoproterozoic era, 800 million years ago. Discrepancy, first fossils 574 Maya, but clock says 800 Maya. Explanation, molecular clock could be wrong. Fossil conditions before Cambrian weren't right for preservation, need rapid burial by clays that can have antimicrobial properties. Either animals instantaneously appeared in Cambrian, or we aren't lucky enough to find any fossils before that time. What was Cambrian life like? Burgess Shale, site with a lot of fossils in BC AB, 65,000 specimens. X. Anomalocaris, Trilobite, Morella. Some clades are presently extinct, but have similar sister taxa relatives living today. Unidentifiable clades, weird wonders. Problematica. Many fossils originally assigned to the taxon Problematica. Some have been reassigned to modern phyla, for example, Hallucigenia. It is hard to tell the orientation and structure of fossils in terms of how it walked and functioned. Why did animal life appear so suddenly? Perhaps threshold oxygen levels crossed from 3 to 10%. Some dispute there was a widespread increase on oxygen. Others say it was already high enough to support complex life. Lower O2 made for diversification and rapid evolution. Another theory, increase in oxygen, led to evolution of predators need higher oxygen and sparked evolutionary arms race. Nutrient levels may have risen, increasing primary productivity and therefore consumer productivity. Animal diversity, protostomes. Group of animals once thought to be characterized by the formation of the organism's mouth before its anus during embryonic development. Examples include nematodes, arthropods, flatworms, annelids, and mollusks. 70% of animal species are insects. 40% of insects are beetles. Innovations leading to animal diversification. Get nervous system, get brain. Evolution of bilaterally symmetrical animals is associated with development of a central nervous system, encephalization, formation of an interior head region with concentrated nerve cells. Sensory appendages for sight, hearing, taste, and smell tend to become concentrated in the head region, eyes, antennae, sensory hairs, etc. Regulatory genes for novel body plans. Tetrapods, chordates with 4 limbs, amphibians, first-land tetrapods, mammals also known as amniotes. Recall key derived characters, hair, lactation, endothermy, linked to high activity and tolerance of cool climates. Oviparous eggs, viviparous live kids, reptiles and birds, also known as amniotes. Most feed on land but return to water to reproduce. External fertilization. X. Lizards, snakes, turtles, crocodiles, alligators. Reptiles monophyletic if birds included. Birds are dinosaurs. Amniotic egg, scales made of keratin, well-developed lungs. Key messages. Vertebrate evolution was highly variable and nonlinear, and gave rise to many derived traits that define lineages. Loss of adaptations has also occurred in many lineages. Snakes, Sicilian amphibians, whales have lost legs, birds have lost teeth. Many lineages are now extinct, for example, dinosaurs except birds, large marine reptiles, flying reptiles, megafauna mentioned in earlier lecture. Some adaptations are monophyletic, with traits evolving only once, and others evolve several times independently, flight in reptiles, birds, and mammals, and viviparity, live births in fish, reptiles, mammals. Food webs and important species. How energy flows. How nutrients cycle. Food webs. What happens when you lose a species? Whole web collapses. Disaster. Major changes in species abundance, arcane lead to famine. Depends on the species' role. What happens when you add a species? Whole web collapses. Disaster. Major changes in species abundance, arcane lead to famine. Depends on the species' role. Species on the web are not all equal. Dominant species. Most abundant species in a food web. Species with highest biomass. X. Near extirpation of American chestnut led to extinction of 7 species of moths and butterflies. Lose dominant species, has effect on food web, potentially leads to extinction. Keystone species. Species influences community structure out of proportion with its abundance. Disproportionate to its abundance. Does something in its lifestyle that's out of proportion to its abundance. Disappearance can trigger ecological meltdowns or changes. Sea otters, hunted for their fur, close to extinction. Exert enormous influence on kelp. Foundation species or ecological engineers. Species that exert significant physical change to their environment. Can act as facilitators for other species. Beaver dam help ecosystem thrive, create habitats. Salmon turn over sand during spawning activities, creates drifts, consequence of low water levels. What controls community structure? What makes it tick? Top-down processes? For example, predation. If predators change numbers, control towards bottom is impacted. Bottom-up processes? Things at bottom control everything. Prey, primary producers, sun. A pyramid is built bottom-up. Nutrients affect everything going up. For example, nutrient limitation, primary productivity. Algal blooms in European lakes. Top-down or bottom-up processes gone wrong? The problem, turbid water, toxic blooms, impacts on tourism, etc. The underlying cause top-down? Don't have enough predators? Algae blooms stay put. Low predators? More biomass of fish, more things. The experiment, biomanipulation. Ecosystem. What an ecosystem. All organisms living in a community as well as all the abiotic factors with which they interact. Any size. Open systems, plant and animals, abiotic control nutrients move in and out of system. Ecosystem biologists' view of the world. Biogeochemistry, nutrients. Energy nutrients into life. Organisms, the result of nutrient-energy interaction. How species interact with each other. Energy flow. Gross primary production. Amount of light energy converted to chemical energy by autotrophs make own food, plants during a given time period. Primary producers create 170 billion tons of organic material each year. Much is absorbed or reflected by non-photosynthetic surfaces, water, rock, soil, ice. Only a small amount of incoming solar energy is fixed by primary producers as gross primary productivity, 0.8%. But it powers ecosystems. Primary production. Satellites. Net primary production, how much life is contributing to making energy. In terms of how much energy they take in. Estuaries, river are very productive. Answers to why some places are productive and why some are not. What limits primary production? Light, nutrients, nitrogen, particularly on land. Phosphorus, particularly in lakes. Iron, particularly in the sea. X, eutrophication due to phosphorus. Experimental lakes area, Ontario. Then single most powerful image in the history of limnology, James Elser. Energy flow. Secondary production. The amount of chemical energy in consumers' food that is converted to new biomass during a given time period. If we're efficient, you don't use that much energy in metabolism. Food is converted to biomass. Production efficiency, stay warm, function takes energy. Trophic efficiency, efficiency at a trophic level. Energy plants to predators is more. Predators cost more energy. We don't farm carnivores but herbivores for food. Trophic inefficiency, trophic productivity, and human diet. Net production. You can go from a very large amount of energy to the bottom up the food web to less and less as you go up. Nutrient recycling. Nutrients are being moved in and out of the food web. Specific species will eat something that will eat another thing, will be moved around according to what it eats. Nutrients will become available again to other parts of the food web. Have abiotic reservoir, can be small scale or big scale, greenhouse effect. Summary, ecosystems are complex, changeable, and structures, and functions not well understood. But through food webs and physical environments, species are connected. Ecological management depends on understanding how these connections work. Life history traits. Overview. Life history traits describe the key aspects of an organism's life cycle, including reproduction, survival, and resource allocation. These traits are crucial for understanding population dynamics and how organisms adapt to their environment. Age of first reproduction, the age at which an organism begins to reproduce. Number of young, the number of offspring produced during a reproductive event. Reproductive events, the frequency and timing of reproductive episodes throughout an organism's life. Lifespan, the duration of an organism's life. Mortality, the rate of death within a population. Life history trade-offs, organisms have finite resources. Energy is allocated to growth, maintenance, and reproduction. Trade-offs exist between different life history traits, e.g., body size versus number of offspring. These trade-offs vary among species. Population dynamics. Overview. Population dynamics studies how populations change in size and density over time and space, influenced by individual behaviors. Key factors include births, deaths, immigration, and emigration. Changes in population size. Population size changes based on births, deaths, immigration, and emigration. Births and immigration increase population size. Deaths and emigration decrease population size. Births and deaths. Births and deaths are primary factors in population size changes. They directly affect population growth or per capita rate of increase. Per capita birth rate B is births per individual. Per capita mortality rate M is deaths per individual. Per capita rate of increase R equal to BM. Example, if N equal to 300 individuals, B equal to 300 births, and D equal to 100 deaths. B equal to 300 300ths equal to 1. M equal to 100 300ths equal to 0.33. R equal to 1 to 0.33 equal to 0.67. Factors affecting population growth. The overall population size is affected by births, deaths, immigration, and emigration. Environmental factors and resource availability also influence population growth. Factors affecting are limitations on available space, increased predation, increased disease. What else? Altruism. Overview. Altruism is defined as behavior that increases another individual's lifetime number of offspring, at a cost to one's own survival and reproduction. It poses an evolutionary puzzle. How can seemingly selfless behaviors evolve? Definition. Altruism is acting to increase another individual's lifetime number of offspring at a cost to one's own survival and reproduction. Evolution. Altruistic behaviors can evolve, especially when the benefits to the recipient B outweigh the costs to the donor C. Helping behavior can be observed in various contexts, including helping non-related individuals. Inclusive fitness. Altruistic behavior can be genetically selfish. Reciprocal altruism. This occurs when help is reciprocated later, benefiting both participants. Reciprocal altruism explains altruism towards non-kin. Kin selection. Overview. Kin selection is a process where traits or genes are favored because they benefit the survival or reproduction of relatives. This when Hamilton's rule is satisfied. Coefficient of relatedness R represents the probability that two individuals share an allele to common ancestry. Calculated as R equal to sigma 0.5 L, where L is the number of generational links between the two individuals. Parent offspring, full siblings, L equal to 1, R equal to 0.5. Cousins, grandparent grandchild, L equal to 2, R equal to 0.25. Hamilton's rule. Kin selection occurs when Hamilton's rule is met, not explicitly stated in this context. Behavioral ecology. Overview. Behavioral ecology is the study of how behavior influences survival and reproduction, focusing on the adaptive significance of actions within an ecological context. It explores the evolutionary reasons behind behaviors and their impact on survive and reproduce. Organisms' ability to, definition and scope, focuses on the survival and reproductive impact of behavior. Explores how ecological interactions shape behavior's contribution to survival. Ultimate versus proximate questions. Behavioral ecologists primarily ask ultimate questions, such as why behaviors occur and why they have evolved. Heritability of behavior. Behavioral variations among individuals exist. These variations are heritable. Influence on survival and reproduction. Feeding behavior examines how and where animals search for food. Analyzes the type of food they choose. Investigates solitary versus group foraging strategies. Sexual behavior. Studies mate searching strategies. Explores mate choice. Investigates mating strategies. Territorial behavior. Examines decisions to defend territories. Considers territory size and location. Individual versus group advantage. Not explicitly mentioned in the context, but relevant to the field. Evolution of altruistic behavior. Not explicitly mentioned in the context, but relevant to the field. Not explicitly mentioned in the context, but relevant. Hamilton's rule. Not explicitly mentioned in the context, but relevant to the field. Reciprocal altruism. Not explicitly mentioned in the context, but relevant to the field. Should I rescue my sibling who is drowning if there is a 25% chance that I will drown in the process? Assume that humans produce an average of 2 offspring in their lifetime. 1 greater than 0.5% benefit cost, so yes, save your sibling. Reciprocal altruism in nature. Reciprocal altruism in nature. Parasitism. Overview. Parasitism is a symbiotic relationship where a parasite benefits by living on or in a host, which is harmed by the association. Parasites are typically large multicellular organisms that steal nutrients from their host and are usually non-lethal, while pathogens are often unicellular, live in the host, and can be lethal. Sea lice and sockeye salmon. Juvenile sockeye salmon heavily infected with sea lice have reduced foraging success. Brown-headed cowbirds not mentioned in the provided context. Mutualism. Overview. Mutualism is a symbiotic interaction where two different species benefit from their relationship, leading to positive effects on communities, such as increased species diversity and expanded distribution ranges. And ants and aphids interaction. Ants and aphids have a mutualistic relationship. Ants benefit. Ants get food, honeydew, from aphids. Aphids benefit. Aphids receive protection from ants. Outcome: both species benefit from this interaction. Commensalism. An overview. Commensalism is a symbiotic interaction where one species benefits while the other is neither helped nor harmed. This relationship can have variable effects on ecological communities. On barnacles on a whale, this is a classic example of commensalism. Barnacles benefit by gaining a habitat and access to food as they attach to the whale. The whale is generally unaffected by the barnacles. Predation. An overview. Predation is a biological interaction where one organism, the predator, kills and eats another organism, its prey. This interaction has significant ecological effects, influencing prey populations, behaviors, and the structure of ecology of fear, and describes how the presence of predators influences prey behavior and spatial distribution, leading to non-lethal effects. Men-prey often alter their foraging, habitat use, and social behavior to avoid predators. Predator-predator-prey coevolution. And focuses on the reciprocal evolutionary adaptations between predators and their prey. Predators evolve traits to improve prey capture, while prey evolve defenses against predation. This leads to an arms race of adaptation and counter-adaptation. Bunt trophic cascades. Bunt describes the indirect effects of predators on lower trophic levels. For example, the reintroduction of wolves in Yellowstone National Park led to changes in elk behavior, which then affected vegetation and other species. And predators can have cascading effects throughout an ecosystem, influencing its structure and function. And resource partitioning. Food chains. Fitness and adaptation. Overview. Fitness and adaptation are fundamental concepts in evolutionary biology. Fitness refers to an organism's ability to survive and reproduce, while an adaptation is a trait that enhances an organism's survival and reproduction in its environment. Fitness definition. Fitness is the lifetime number of progeny in an organism. Adaptation definition. An adaptation is any trait that helps an organism survive and reproduce. Structural adaptations. No specific information in context. Behavioral adaptations. No specific information in context. Physiological adaptations. No specific information in context. Darwin's Galapagos observations. Overview. Charles Darwin's observations in the Galapagos Islands were crucial to the development of his theory of evolution. He noted the presence of unique endemic species, variations among islands, and the gradation of life forms, which challenged the then prevailing view of fixed species. Endemic species observed the presence of aboriginal creations, or endemic species, found only in the Galapagos, noted the unique characteristics of the Galapagos tortoise. Variation among islands observed variations in species across different islands, gradation and diversity, noted gradation and diversity among the species. Observed bill size and shape variations in Galapagos finches. Evolution by natural selection. Overview. Evolution by natural selection is a process where traits within a population change over generations due to factors like competition and heritable variation. This process requires variation in traits, heritability of that variation, and fitness consequences. Competition. Competition is an observation that leads to natural selection. Variation. Variation among individuals is a key component of natural selection. Heritable variation. Heritable variation leads to natural selection. Selection. Natural selection is a process that involves traits and leads to evolution. Adaptation. Adaptation is a trait that is a result of evolution. Lamarck's theory of evolution. Overview. Lamarck's theory proposed that species evolve over time, driven by the principles of use and disuse and the inheritance of acquired characteristics. This theory suggests that traits developed during an organism's lifetime can be passed on to its offspring. Use and disuse. A process where body parts used extensively become stronger and larger. Parts that are not used deteriorate. Inheritance of acquired characteristics. Traits acquired during an organism's lifetime can be passed on to their offspring. This implies that changes in an individual's characteristics due to environmental factors or usage can be inherited. Beagle Voyage. Overview. The Beagle Voyage 1831 to 1836 was a 5-year expedition aboard the HMS Beagle, primarily focused on mapping the coast of South America and making global measurements. This voyage was significant for Charles Darwin's observations and the collection of geological and biological specimens, which contributed to his development of the theory of evolution. Mapping South America. The primary objective was to map the coast of South America and voyage around the world making latitude, longitude measurements. Charles Lyell's influence. Darwin read Charles Lyell's and Principles of Geology. Lyell's ideas that natural processes explain past events, volcanoes, earthquakes, floods, erosion, influenced Darwin. Lyell's work emphasized that fossils provide important evidence of change. Fossil collection. Darwin collected many fossils and living organisms during the voyage. These collections were crucial in Darwin's later work. Constraints on adaptation. Overview. Adaptations, which are traits that enhance an organism's survival and reproduction, are often subject to various constraints, including trade-offs and limitations imposed by existing genetic variation and non-genetic changes. These constraints prevent organisms from achieving perfection in their adaptations. Compromises. Adaptations often involve trade-offs. Examples of trade-offs include balancing foraging success with attractiveness to predators. Adaptation does not equal perfection. Organisms adapt to the current environment. Existing variation. Natural selection operates on existing variation within a population. Evolution versus non-genetic changes. Adaptations are traits that help an organism survive and reproduce. Adaptations can be structural, behavioral, or physiological. Charles Darwin. Overview. Charles Darwin 1809 to 1882 was a British naturalist whose work revolutionized the field of biology, particularly with his theory of evolution by natural selection. His observations and studies during the HMS Beagle voyage, along with his later research, led to the publication of On the Origin of Species, which presented his groundbreaking ideas. HMS Beagle Voyage. Darwin served as a naturalist on the HMS Beagle from 1831 to 1836, initially for a 2-year voyage that extended to 5 years. The voyage's primary purpose was to map the coast of South America and make latitude, longitude measurements. During the voyage, Darwin collected numerous fossils and living organisms. Darwin was influenced by Charles Lyell's Principles of Geology, which emphasized observable natural processes in shaping the Earth. Galapagos observations. This topic is not directly discussed in the context provided. Publication of On the Origin of Species. The title page of On the Origin of Species is presented, published in 1859. The book's subtitle is A Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. The book was authored by Charles Darwin and published by John Murray in London. Adaptive radiation. Overview. Adaptive radiation is the rapid diversification of a single ancestral lineage-guided equilibrium into numerous new forms. This occurs when new ecological niches become available, driven by factors like environmental changes, new habitats, or the evolution of key innovations. Speciation represents the sudden and rapid diversification of a phyletic line into several lineages. Tempo of speciation, gradualism, traditional view. Not supported by fossil record, punctual equilibrium, rapid appearance, slow to no change later. Galapagos finches. Adaptive radiation in Galapagos finches is an example of speciation driven by the archipelago's unique environment. Causes: archipelago, new habitat, new food sources, island hopping. Hawaiian honeycreepers, information not available in the provided context. Mammal radiation. Adaptive radiation of mammals occurred after the extinction of dinosaurs. Bats, information not available in the provided context. Occurs when a new set of niches opens up. Evolution of a novel feature. Opening up of a new habitat. Extinction of other species or lineages. Megafauna extinctions. Overview: megafauna extinctions refer to the die-off of large terrestrial animals, primarily those weighing over 44 kilograms. These extinctions began in the late Pleistocene epoch and have been a subject of scientific investigation, with focus on the species affected and the potential causes. Victims: large terrestrial animals greater than 44 kilograms. Extinctions began in the late Pleistocene, 100,000 to 10,000 years ago. Causes: potential factors include climate change, hyperdisease, and overexploitation by humans. Overexploitation by humans is considered a likely cause in many cases. Extinction. Overview: extinction is the complete disappearance of a species from Earth. Throughout history, there have been periods of both background extinction and mass extinctions, leading to significant changes in biodiversity and the evolution of life. Mass extinctions, defined as periods with significantly elevated extinction rates, leading to a major loss of biodiversity. Examples of mass extinctions include those occurring during the Ordovician, Devonian, Permian, Triassic, and Cretaceous periods. Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic, Permian extinction, one of the most severe extinction events in Earth's history, occurring at the end of the Permian period. Cretaceous Tertiary Kate extinction, the extinction event that led to the demise of the non-avian dinosaurs. Megafauna extinctions, refers to the extinction of large-bodied animals, megafauna, during the late Pleistocene epoch. Extinction rates varied by region, with Australia experiencing the highest percentage of megafauna extinctions. KT extinction. Overview: the KT extinction, which occurred approximately 65 million years ago, resulted in the extinction of roughly 76% of all species, including non-avian dinosaurs, due to a catastrophic meteorite impact. This event marked the boundary between the Cretaceous and Tertiary periods and significantly reshaped life on Earth. Meteorite impact: the primary cause of the K extinction was a massive meteorite impact. The impact site is a 180-kilometer diameter crater off the Yucatan Peninsula, Mexico. Evidence for meteorite hypothesis: a global layer of iridium at the KT boundary provides strong evidence for a meteorite impact. Consequences of impact: the impact triggered widespread fires and generated tsunamis, with waves up to 4 kilometers high. It caused dust, darkness, and significant cooling of the planet. Water vaporized from the oceans and acid rain occurred. Earthquakes and volcanic activity were also triggered. The impact led to mass extinction, with terrestrial animals being the most affected. Hominoids. Superfamily includes apes and humans. And derived characters: and tailless, arm swinging, worm swinging, more erect posture, larger body size, larger brain. Hominins. Everything since chimps branched off. 1. Australopithecus africanus. 2. Homo habilis. 3. Homo erectus. 4. Homo neanderthalensis. 5. Homo sapiens. No orderly evolution. It's a mess. It's chaotic. Hominin evolution. A. First hominin, Sahelanthropus chidensis. B. Ardipithecus-Cadaba. 1. Australopithecines, and famous Lucy fossil, and found in Ethiopia in 1974. And 3.2 Maie. Phylogeny of living apes, hominids, and gibbon, hanging and swinging in, not bipedal. Less related, chimps and bonobos are closest relatives, 8%, 40% complete skeleton. Characteristics: small brain, approximately 500 cm3, ape-like characteristics, e.g. long arms. Bipedal. Derived human trait, bipedalism. Manen clues to modes of locomotion. In arm length, shorter when bipedal. Knee joints, straighter when bipedal. Attachment of skull to vertebrae, coming downward when bipedal. And pelvis tends to be narrower when bipedal, not flared out. Evolutionary significance of bipedalism. Benefits: improved predator detection, and display or warning signal. Freed the hands in order to carry things. More energy efficient if long travel distances need a trade-off, long distance, but slower. Efficient method of thermoregulation. And costs. When stress on joints: narrower pelvis minus difficult childbirth, reduced speed, and reduced climbing ability. Genus Homo, and derived characters, in a significant brain enlargement. Elaboration of material culture, tools, and art. 2. Homo habilis, the handyman. When 2.4 to 1.6. Maya, Short jaw, small molars, larger brain 600 to 750 cc. Tool use. Appears more than 2 Maya. 4 habilis and or a garhi 450 ccs. Shift in diet, evidence of cognition, and stored hunting. 3. Homo ergaster, the working man. 1.9 to 1.5 Maya. Long, slender legs, small teeth, larger brain 900 ccs, reduced sexual dimorphism. 4. Homo erectus, upright man. 1.8 Maya, 200,000 ya. And out of Africa to Asia. 5. Homo neanderthalensis, 1/200,000 minus 25,000 ya. Europe and the Near East, 1,000 cold adapted, large brain 1,200 to 1,700 cc, and Neanderthals and humans interbred. Humans not in Africa have 1 to 4% Neanderthal DNA. 6. Homo naledi, 335,000 minus 236,000, Waya dated in spring 2017. Near Johannesburg, 2013. Small brain, 465 to 560 cc. Min skull features more like Homo than Australopithecines. 7. Homo floresiensis. Min discovered 2003, Flores Island, Indonesia, and arrived 1.3 to 1.7 Maya. Unsurvived until 50,000 years ago. Men stood about 1 minute high. Origin, and from undetected small Australopithecus or Homo habilis-like ancestor that migrated out of Africa, and or descended from Javanese Homo erectus, evolved small size. 8. Homo sapiens. Migrated eldest fossils 195,000 y from Ethiopia. Migrated out of Africa approximately 115,000 y. Derived characters, abstract thought, innovation, when symbolism, and goal-directed behavior. And 98.8% genes shared with chimps. 1.2% would be very large effects. Conclusions. Hominin evolution has not been orderly. Linus, lots of branches on the tree. There may have been up to 3 species of Homo alive at the same time. Sen, lots of uncertainty about some phylogenetic placements, but new discoveries all the time. Sexual selection, quick review. Process by which individuals that have traits that increase their mating success are favored over individuals that do not have these traits. Competition, often stronger in males. Male-male competitions, more men are killed, humans. Some competition are nonviolent. Infidelity, mate choice, often stronger in females. Difference between the sexes. Males have small gametes, mate as much as possible, lots of, strategy to max, hashtag of offspring produced. Female have large gamers, mate as carefully as possible. Few gametes, low potential offspring, sperm competition within culture. These factors make it harder for sperm, makes them competitive. Wife sharing. Prostitution, premarital sex. Marriage is a form of mate guarding, reduces sperm competition. Biologically, marriage is good. Mate choice. How people used to meet people. Face-to-face, meet people with similar interest. Dating apps. Ads for spouse newspapers. Female mate choice. Advantages of personal ads. Not aimed at researchers. Short so only important info appears. Advertisers are truly interested. Disadvantages of personal ads. People might underestimate what they truly want. People might overstate what they have to offer. What women want. 1. Resourcefulness. 2. Sincerity. Sense of humor. Intelligence. Romance. 6. Good health. 7. Attractiveness. 8. Parsimony. What men offer. 1. Resourcefulness. 2. Sincerity. 3. Attractiveness. 4. Good health. 5. Intelligence. 6. Sense of humor. 7. Parsimony. How can provide females resources. Older men. Intelligent men. Wealthy couples get more children. Resourceful men indulge wealthy. Skillful. They make more children. Birth control with wealthy couples helped control fertility rate. Male mate choice. Men should be choosy with offspring. What men want. 1. Attractiveness. 2. Good health. 3. Sense of humor. 4. Intelligence. 5. Sexiness. 6. Parsimony. 7. Sincerity. 8. Success. What women offer. 1. Attractiveness. 2. Romance. 3. Sense of humor. 4. Success. 5. Good health. 6. Intelligence. 7. Sincerity. 8. Sexiness. Who can provide. Young women. Intelligent women. Shapely. These traits increases reproductive success. Human mating systems. Monogamous. Polyandrous. Polygynous. Are monogamous societies truly monogamous? X. Pitcairn Island. Truly monogamous. Religiousness has a factor. Morality? Reminder. Evolution by natural selection in 3 steps. Variation among individuals. Heritable variation. Where does it come from? Variation linked to fitness. Reproduction without fertilization. Parent passes on 100% of its genes to all its offspring. Sexual reproduction. Occurs through fertilization to produce a genetically novel individual. Each parent passes 50% of its genes to each offspring. Offspring tend to resemble parents. 2 types. External fertilization. Internal fertilization. What are some of the ways sexual function is distributed? 1. Separate sexes. A. Human. 2. Hermaphrodite, both male and female. A. Banana slug. B. Lily. Variations on hermaphroditism. Sequential hermaphrodites begin life as males but become female as they get older and larger. They possess both parts. Cucumber plants have separate male and female flowers. Only female flowers make cucumbers. Paradox of sex, why so common? By breeding with a male, a female halves her genetic contribution to her offspring. What selects for individuals to discard half of their genes? Only half the population female is capable of bearing offspring. Asexual competitors would have a higher intrinsic rate of increase because every offspring can produce its own offspring more rapidly with each generation. One purifying selection hypothesis. Asexual organisms pass on all genes, including deleterious mutations, an accumulation of damaging alleles that cause. Diploid sexual organisms have 2 chromosomes, which means dominance can overrule deleterious alleles, and selection against deleterious alleles can purify genomes. Changing environment hypothesis. Genetic variation produced by meiosis can create new combinations of alleles, can keep up with changes in the environment, for example pathogens. How does sexual reproduction work? Chromosomes. Eukaryotic DNA is organized into chromosomes. Diploid 2N cells have homologous pairs of chromosomes. Human karyotype and chromosome types. 2N equal to 46, 2 copies of each chromosome. Total number of chromosomes, 22 pairs of autosomal chromosomes, 1 pair of sex chromosomes. Variation among species. The need to divide. Somatic cells. All the cells in the body except sex cells. Diploid 2N, produced from diploid cell by mitosis. Gametes sex cells, eggs and sperm, haploid, produced from diploid cell by meiosis. Generalized life cycle. Meiosis accomplishes a reduction from diploid 2N to haploid state. Genetic recombination. Meiosis, step 1. Replicate the chromosomes, become sister chromatids, see above. Step 2. Pair the homologs to prepare them for separation. Step 3. Separate the homologs. So one of each goes into the daughter cell. Meiosis, second step 1. Replicate the chromosomes, become sister chromatids. Step 2. Pair the homologs to prepare them for separation. Step 3. Separate the homologs. So one of each goes into the daughter cell. The cells are now haploid, but the chromosomes are still replicated, therefore need. Step 4. Separate the chromatids. Then 4 haploid cells, each with 1 chromosome. Sources of genetic variation. Crossing over equal to recombination. Independent assortment. Random fertilization. Crossing over. Maternal and paternal chromosomes swap sections. Exchange of corresponding segments of DNA by non-sister chromatids. Independent assortment. Random alignment of each pair of homologous chromosomes. The chromosomes with A, B, and C didn't all have to go together. Random fertilization. Humans. Each sperm and egg has 223 possible chromosome combinations. Any 2 parents will produce a zygote with minus 70,223 times 223 potential diploid combinations. Alleles. On homologous chromosomes, the linear sequence of genes is identical, but recall that alleles may differ. Allele for purple flower and allele for white flower. Mendelian genetics. The scientific study of how traits are passed on from parent to offspring. The study of heredity. Law of segregation. Mendel's first law of heredity. Only one of the 2 gene copies present in an organism is distributed to each gamete, egg, or sperm cell that it makes, and the allocation of the gene copies is random. Chromosomes segregate. Law of independent assortment. Mendel's second law of heredity. During meiosis, homologous chromosomes are separated randomly. Therefore, each pair of alleles segregates independently of every other pair of alleles during gamete formation. Genes segregate independently. Genotypes. Misconceptions about dominant and recessive alleles. Misconception. Dominant traits are more likely to be inherited. Clarification. Dominant and recessive alleles are equally likely to be passed on after meiosis 050. Misconception. Recessive alleles are not expressed. Clarification. Dominant and recessive alleles can both be expressed, as will be shown. Misconception. Dominant alleles are always more common than recessive alleles. Clarification. The frequency of an allele is independent of whether it is dominant or recessive. Phenotypic expression of genotype WW, dominant trait WW, dominant trait WW, recessive trait. Altruism. Overview. Altruism involves behaviors that benefit others at a cost to the individual's own fitness. Natural selection favors selfish behaviors, thus altruism is complex to explain. This lecture will cover altruism, including reciprocal altruism as observed in vampire bats. Inclusive fitness. Natural selection primarily acts on individuals, not groups. Altruistic behaviors directed towards kin increase inclusive fitness. These behaviors are genetically selfish because they promote the survival of shared genes. Reciprocal altruism. Animals are more likely to help those that have previously helped them. Vampire bats are an example of reciprocal altruism where they share food with non-related individuals. Vampire bats. Vampire bats favor kin, but also engage in reciprocal altruism by sharing food. Forms of sexual selection. Overview. Sexual selection, as defined by Darwin, is the process where individuals with traits that enhance mating success are favored. This process leads to the evolution of characteristics that improve an individual's ability to reproduce, differentiating it from natural selection, which favors traits that increase survival. Intrasexual selection favors the ability to compete directly with members of the same sex, often more pronounced in males. This competition is for access to the opposite sex. Intersexual selection favors the ability to attract members of the opposite sex. Mating systems. Overview. Mating systems describe the patterns of mate acquisition for both sexes, significantly influenced by reproductive potential, parental care, ecology, and evolutionary history, and are a major determinant of the strength of sexual selection. Promiscuity. No pair bond is formed. No care of young or care by female only. Evenly distributed resources. Monogamy. Care of young by both parents. Evenly dispersed resources. Polygyny. Care of young by female only. Patchy resources. Polyandry. Care of young by male only. Low male rate of reproduction. Overview. The primary distinction between males and females lies in gamete production, with females producing few, large, and energetically expensive gametes, while males produce numerous, small, and cheap gametes. This fundamental difference leads to other variations. Differences between males and females. Gamete production. Females produce few, large, and energetically expensive gametes. Males produce numerous small and cheap gametes. Sexual dimorphism. Males and females always have different A-primary sexual characteristics, sex organs. Males and females have different secondary sexual characteristics not essential for reproduction, such as elongated feathers, antlers, hair, colors, or large size. Sexual selection. Overview. Sexual selection, as defined by Darwin, is the advantage certain individuals have over others of the same sex and species in relation to reproduction, favoring traits that increase mating success. This lecture will cover the key aspects of sexual selection, including mating systems and mate choice. Altruism recap. Brief review of altruism and vampires. Differences between males and females. The most important difference between males and females. Mating systems. The pattern of mate acquisition by both sexes. Shaped by male-female reproductive potential, parental care, ecology, and phylogeny. A major determinant of how strong sexual selection will be. Forms of sexual selection, not explicitly mentioned in the provided text, but a key topic related to the overall concept. Mate choice. Not explicitly mentioned in the provided text, but a key topic related to the overall concept. Good genes. Not explicitly mentioned in the provided text, but a key topic related to the overall concept. Mate choice. Overview. Mate choice, also known as intersexual selection, is a process where one sex chooses mates, leading to the evolution of specific traits. This selection can be driven by the direct and indirect benefits offered by potential partners. Direct benefits: choosing mates based on species. Access to good, safe territory. Receiving food, obtaining a good parent for offspring, selecting a fertile mate. Indirect benefits: choosing mates with good genes. Sexually selected traits indicate genetic quality due to their production cost. Sexy sons. Females choosing males with attractive traits produce sons with similar traits, driving runaway selection. Good genes in peacocks. Sexually selected traits like those in peacocks advertise genetic quality. These traits are costly to produce, signaling that the male has good genes. Sexy sons. Females choosing males with well-developed sexually selected traits. Results in sons inheriting the attractive traits, continuing the selection pressure.